What's up, my name is Sikander Salim and I'm an instructor at the Film Camp for Kids and Youth. In this video I'm going to be talking to you about sound design, what it is, what it's composed of, and how you can use it to elevate your film to the next level. So let's jump right into it. Part 1. What is sound design? Sound design is a process of creating or acquiring elements of audio using various production techniques and tools. Sound design plays a huge role in live performances, radio, video games, music production, movies, and so much more. But for the sake of this video, let's focus on just the movie aspect. When watching a movie, the sound design can change the mood of an entire scene. Not only can sound design be used to tell the story, it can also be used to amplify certain parts of that story. Part 2. What makes up sound design? There are 5 different elements that make up sound design. 1. Dialogue. 2. Ambience. 3. Sound effects. 4. Foley. And 5. Music. Let's start with dialogue. Any form of verbal expression that comes from an actor is considered dialogue, whether it's a line spoken to another character or a grunt if they're shoveling something too heavy. The purpose of dialogue is to drive the plot forward and to reveal something new about the character. Number 2. Ambience. Ambience is a sound of your environment, and it changes depending on your location. If you're in a restaurant, you'll hear things like people talking, maybe glass clinking, or a cash register. But if you're in a park, you might hear things like dogs barking, children playing, maybe cars going by in the distance. It all depends on your location, and creating a proper ambience during your sound design process can really help sell the realism of the scene. Number 3 is sound effects. Sound effects are sounds that are used to make specific points in the story without the use of dialogue or music. For example, if a bad guy walks into a room, instead of having music build up the tension, there could be a sudden sound effect that signifies that in fact he is someone you probably don't want to mess with. Number 4 is Foley. Foley is the art form of creating everyday sounds using everyday objects to add or enhance audio. Since the main focus of the sound recorders on set is to capture clean dialogue, Foley is recorded afterwards by Foley artists in studio. Foley is pretty tough. The job of a Foley artist is to be as specific as possible when creating sounds for a scene. And they need to make sure they catch all the details from something as minor as footsteps to something as major as thunderstorms. Last but not least, number 5. Music. Music is the most important part of the entire sound design process because it can really set the tone of the film. It can change the mood, it can incite emotion, and honestly it can really make or break the film. Music does not need to be played from beginning to end of the film to have that emotion or feeling going. In fact, too much music can actually have the opposite effect and take away from it. Remember, music is an aid, not the driving force. We're shooting a film, not a music video. Those are the 5 elements of sound design, but I'll give you actually one more secret tip. Silence. You're probably thinking, how does silence go with sound design? Well, taking away elements instead of including them can actually have more of an effect. When I say silence, I mean just the room tone. There's no other ambient sounds, there's no dialogue, no music, no sound effects, just room tone. For example, in horror movies, when the character is hiding from the monster, you just hear the room tone. This trick is used to bring the audience into the character's world and immerse them into their space. This trick can also be used in comedies and happens generally before a big punchline is about to hit. So there you have it, the 5+1 elements of sound design. Now let's move on to part 3. Part 3, elevating your film to the next level. So we went over the different elements of sound design, but just because you include them doesn't necessarily mean that your film is going to sound good. To get it sounding right and take it to the next level, there's a step called mixing. Mixing is taking all these elements, balancing out volume levels, panning left and right, adding different audio effects to make sure they all work very well together. Think of it like baking a cake. Each element of audio is a different ingredient. Your eggs, milk, sugar, flour. You can pick and choose how much of each ingredient you want to put in. Similar to mixing, you can manipulate each individual element in its own way. There's no right or wrong way to mix. It's really whatever sounds best, but making sure every element stands out in its own unique way. So now that mixing is done, it's time to move on to the next step, which is called mastering, or baking the cake. Mastering is there to bring up all the elements as a whole and make sure everything sounds as loud as possible without clipping and everything can be heard perfectly. Keep in mind that before going to mastering, you want to make sure the mix sounds as close to perfect as possible. When mastering, you are no longer working with each individual element, but everything as a whole. For example, with cake batter, you can no longer remove how many eggs and how much sugar you put in. You can change your mix, but you gotta go back and start over. Like with cake batter, you gotta throw it away and start from scratch. So there you have it, all you need to know about sound design to get started at home. We learned about what it was, the 5 elements, plus the secret, and how you can use it to elevate your film to the next level. To learn more specifics about sound design, audio, or any other aspects of filmmaking, visit filmcampforkids.com where we offer full 1-hour classes where we go more in depth. Thanks for watching.